Have you ever been stuck in the middle of an argument between two people? If so, then you know exactly how gut-wrenching it can be. And that could not be more true when one or more of these people is a toxic narcissist. That's because toxic people have a tendency to use triangulation, which is a manipulation tactic often employed by narcissists. Triangulation is what we call it when the narcissist communicates as a third party between two people, but prevents the two from communicating directly through either manipulating or controlling at least one of those people. So what does this mean exactly? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today at QueenBeeing.com. How to identify and deal with triangulation in a toxic relationship. How and why narcissists put you in the middle of their arguments and their conflicts with other people. And how you can end that fast. So let's get started. Narcissists have a fun way of sticking us right in the middle of their arguments. And in this video, we're going to talk about how you can step away from that conflict and that mess and not be part of every single issue the narcissist has. Let me start out today with a quick story. So there's a woman I know, let's call her Sally, whose best friend Molly always seems to put her romantic conquests above Sally. We've all seen this, right? Well, at first it didn't really bother Sally very much because while it could be frustrating to watch, she knew that Molly was looking for Mr. Right, and she totally supported that. That's what friends do, right? But recently, Sally finds herself feeling angry that Molly keeps canceling their plans in favor of a guy she swears is the one. And it doesn't seem to matter how important the plans are or how long they've been in place. If this guy calls, Molly drops everything, including Sally. Rather than just talking to Molly and explaining how she's feeling, or how she feels like she doesn't matter to Molly when she gets blown off for this guy, etc., Sally kind of goes toxic. See, Sally works with the guy's sister. Let's call her Becky. And one day while they're on break together, Sally spills the tea. She tells Becky that Molly is obsessed with her brother and how she's worried that the relationship is going too fast. She might even hint around that Molly has a history of being obsessive with boyfriends in the past and halfway warn Becky to keep a close eye on the situation. Yeah. Then Sally asks Becky to keep it to herself, to not say a word to her brother because she's not trying to interfere in their relationship. Right? Okay. On her end, obviously Becky feels worried and protective of her brother. She doesn't want to break Sally's trust, but she also worries that her brother has a right to know what he's dealing with here. I mean, who wouldn't? So she begins to obsessively spend time with the new couple. And before long, her brother feels like she's kind of smothering him and says, "Hey girl, back off a little bit, would ya?" Well, while all this is going on, Molly begins to feel more distant from Sally than ever and mentions to her boyfriend that Sally seems more distant recently. So Molly asks her boyfriend not to say anything to anyone because she doesn't want to cause any trouble in anyone's life. She says, "I'm just venting. Don't worry. I'm just venting. It's all fine." So rather than dealing with just each other, Sally and Molly end up complaining to other people, and then they never end up addressing the actual issue that's causing the problem, which is, of course, the fact that Molly always puts her boyfriend above Sally, even when they already had plans. Meanwhile, Molly continues to ignore Sally for her boyfriend, and while she feels stuck in the middle of Sally and her boyfriend, she can't really help but feel some resentment toward both Becky, her boyfriend's smothering sister, who has started to behave this way as a result of Sally bringing her into a situation that had nothing to do with either of them. This kind of stuff happens between people all the time. And the pattern of triangulation can become that very reason that many people find themselves feeling heartache, not to mention the end of many relationships. Being stuck between two people in an argument, conflict, or general disagreement is really difficult on an emotional and psychological level, especially for those of us who are or have been codependent with a toxic person. And while you might be tempted to take sides or offer advice to one or more of the parties involved, it's really best to steer clear and remain neutral when a narcissist is involved. Sure, there are going to be times when a well-placed nugget of wisdom could literally fix a problem someone's having with another person. That's when it helps to offer insight and advice when you see what could help, as is often the case When you're connected but not directly involved with a third party can be really useful, a third party perspective. But sometimes, especially with smart, stubborn people like narcissists, you have to stay out of a situation and let people deal with it on their own. See, in general, most narcissists just aren't receptive to advice unless they choose to be. You might say they work on sort of energy and emotion, and so when the energy and emotion aren't entirely positive, they can't focus on what's really happening, and everything becomes clouded, distorting their thoughts and their sense of being present. Their every interaction becomes tinged by the negativity, and then they begin to see it spill into other parts of their lives, most notably their relationships. So if you push them to fix their issues, you'll simply become part of that negative energy they feel, and they'll direct it toward you as well. And then you know what happens, right? Yeah, triangulation. The narcissist begins to play you and the other person off each other, and then it gets even worse. You become a source of narcissistic supply if you weren't already. But if you take a different road and you literally refuse to get involved, you actually do the narcissist and the current victim a favor. If the issue is resolvable, if resolving it matters to the narcissist, they'll get through it one way or another. This is even more probable if the relationship is important to the narcissist. It might be painful to watch, but you've just got to look away while they work through it, even if you're certain that your advice could really change things. By choosing to let go of stuff and work through it on their own, and your own nose stays clean. I don't know, that sounds like a win-win to me. How about you? There are certain tactics the narcissist will use in and around the drama triangle, such as giving you guilt trips or pretending they're going to save you and then persecuting you for actually asking for a rescue, or pretending they're going to save you and then acting like they're your victim and somehow you've negatively affected them. All of this mixed with the intermittent reinforcement that is a narcissistic relationship, alternating verbal abuse and highest praise, support and comfort alternated with tearing down and devaluing. You'll find yourself making excuses for that person. As empaths, as humans, our brains tend to want to focus on the things that are good in our lives, the things that are good in other people, and especially those people that we love, the people who are closest to us. So we'll make excuses for their behavior. We'll become their rescuer sometimes. The guilt tripping is painful. They kind of really know exactly what buttons to push to make you feel guilty, to make you feel bad about yourself and what you've done or haven't done. And I think what it all comes down to is that we have to recognize that we're being manipulated in these moments. We are being abused directly and on purpose. And so when we recognize that we are dealing with this manipulation that leads to and becomes part of our abuse, we have a responsibility to ourselves and to anyone else who we affect directly outside of the narcissist to pull ourselves away and recognize, hey, this is what we're dealing with. Take a minute to understand it and look at it, which kind of takes the power out of it if you think about it, and then to overcome it by stepping back and out of that triangle. It's the best thing you can do. It's the gray rock method, but more intense, if that makes any sense. This is when you need to use mindfulness to your advantage. What is mindfulness exactly? Well, for people who don't know, mindfulness is a form of meditation that is taught as part of CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. This is currently one of the most popular psychotherapeutic approaches for treating a range of mental health disorders such as anxiety, various phobias, and depression. I know a lot of us who have been abused by narcissists suffer some of those things. So the general idea behind CBT is that our emotions and our behaviors are controlled by our thoughts. Now, if you're experiencing anxiety, for instance, then there's a good chance that this is being created by ruminations and thoughts that are causing you to become anxious. A phobia of heights, for example, might be caused by thoughts like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall. So in order to help people identify thought processes like this, CBT teaches mindfulness as a form of self-reflection. This involves sitting quietly and simply observing the contents of your own thoughts. Now, as they pass by, you might notice little things like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall. But unlike other forms of meditation, you're not really trying to quiet your thoughts here. Instead, you're just noting them and reflecting on them. Does that make sense? Take the time to notice patterns that are happening in your relationship and kind of do something different than you've done before. Use a pattern interrupt to change your mind. It's worth the trouble, my friend, I promise. Well, this brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, have you been put in the middle of an argument by a narcissist before? And how did you deal with it? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, before I go, make sure you take a look at the videos I'm leaving for you here. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together. I'll see you soon.